This video will have spoilers for Jujutsu Kaisen up to chapter 180. And that's your spoiler warning. Before I started reading this manga, I saw the takes where the manga readers were telling anime onlys that they were not ready for what was to come in the next season of Jujutsu Kaisen. Having caught up with the manga, I really have to say, they weren't lying. Like, I thought season 1 was crazy, but the anime onlys are not ready for the insanity and amazingness that's going to be dropped on them when season 2 and even later when season 3 comes out. This story just keeps getting better and better. Like, you can actually feel Gejo's writing get smoother and more well executed with each chapter that comes out, to the point where when you look back on the initial arcs, which were all well written in their own right, you just think, wow, this story's gotten so much better since then. The character writing is different feeling from what I usually expect from shonen. I think that's because of how Gejo handles the characters and the way they interact with their world. But also it's notable in what happens when characters die. When he kills a character off, it feels different, not bad, and he's also not the only author who does this, but I think he's the one who kills his characters off like this so consistently. Like, at this point, the Jujutsu Kaisen fandom is completely traumatized and holding itself over all their favorite characters that keep dying and the very real threat that more characters are going to join them soon. And just the impact from deaths. Just look at Jogo's death. This is a character that almost everyone I've seen talk about him just shits on him for how he's written and the fact that he keeps losing all his major fights, which, to be fair, he's almost always consistently fighting the strongest characters around. With that in mind, he actually does pretty well. Like, he fought Gojo, who is the definition of OP, and when he fought Sukuna was pretty close to also being the definition of... No, let's be honest, Sukuna is also the definition of OP. Like, everything he does in the Shibuya incident arc was just craziness atop craziness. And yet, Jogo's death hit surprisingly hard for me. And the emotions, it just felt so complete. And that doesn't mean the characters were still alive or underdeveloped in any way. Like, look at Itadori. He started off so hopeful and optimistic, and I wouldn't say he's a shadow of himself, but that's kind of how I describe him. He's kind of a shadow of himself. And the whole story is put him through hell, and then it shoved him through hell's sub-basement for extra measure, and then just started beating the shit out of him for fun. And now he's just notably a different person from the very joyous guy he started out as. And it's not only happened to him, several characters have been put through dark positions, and it's just going to be so great to see it get exploded. We're already seeing what's happened to Maki and that extremity where she decided to pull an Itachi on her family. And it shouldn't be surprising considering the fact the main power system basically runs on negative emotions. There are some also surprising twists or things I've seen done in other manga. Like, take Sukuna. He feels like someone was like, okay, but what if the inner demon inside the protagonist was really a demon? Because it feels like every time Sukuna comes out, Geg is like, okay, now how do I further squash the idea that he's going to be Yuji's ally in the future? What horrible thing will I have him do to someone? And look at Mahito, who's probably my favorite antagonist in the manga, and he kind of reminds me of Shigaraki from MHA. You get to watch him develop along the hero and get stronger, and it's shockingly effective. One of my favorite moments in the entire manga is when Mahito uses the black flash on Itadori, something up to that point I had never even considered a curse could pull off. And then he later realized he learned how to do a 0.2 second domain expansion from seeing Gojo do it once. That's some anime protagonist shit right there. And it all leads up to the I'm you speech, and how many times can I say amazing in one video? And don't get me started on Gojo, who feels like both such a goofy character and yet at the same time like a real force of nature, to the point where there's a whole chapter dedicated to how he changed the feel of the world just by being born. There are so many characters I really want to talk about that I'll have to save for their own videos. Toji, Choso, Higuruma, hell, even Geto's two adopted daughters, Mimiko and Nanako, who have like 5 chapters of screen time between them. I mean, what can I say? This manga has a chapter where the author straight up breaks away from the main characters and the main plot to write about a lawyer and his experiences and frustrations with the Japanese justice system, and it will have you on the edge of your seat. And then the last page hits and then you're reminded, oh yeah, this is Jujutsu Kaisen. And I've barely even got to touch upon the fights, which are all insane in their own right, whether or not it's simply Gojo reminding everyone why he calls himself the strongest with almost zero arrogance. Or the other characters who are less OP having to engage in real tactical fights where they have to think through and sometimes just beat their way through. And you know what? I'm gonna say it. The art only helps with the manga's tone. The art is really good. People say it's bad, but it's not. It's better to describe it as stylized. When you read it and it hits like a freight train. Especially when it does things like choreographing multiple movements into a single panel. It feeds into the series' brutal tone. But I feel like the true power of the series' art is seen in its paneling, which works to direct your eyes along the line of sight where someone is getting their ass kicked. It's all just praiseworthy. So yeah, I'd say Jujutsu Kaisen is pretty good. It's definitely worth the read if you, for some reason, watch this whole video without having seen it. To which I say, I managed to keep the spoilers pretty light. I didn't even mention anyone besides Jogo dying. I really can't wait to read more about it and even talk about it in other videos. What are your thoughts on Jujutsu Kaisen? Please tell me about it in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content because I will be talking more about this manga in the future. Thank you and good day.